Today, I have another project locomotive to work on, and it is in the form of a lifelike 040. First of all, I need to give the thing a bit of a test run, so I'll give it some power. It seems like it's hopping a little bit. And it's just derailed. A little background on this model, I got this thing in a lot fairly recently. That's about all you need to know. But while we were testing it, as you noticed, it derailed and it was not running very well. So I think this is one of two things. I'm pretty sure I know what it is already, but I'm going to show you at least one of those things. This right here is an NMRA scales gauge. It looks very shiny in my light, but I'm thinking one possibility, and it looks really filthy down here, we'll have to address that, is that the wheels could be out of gauge on this thing. So I'm just going to check the flanges really quick. And both of them seem to be pretty good. So I'm pretty sure I know what our issue is, and I am positive just about that it's a cracked gear. So now we've got to tear into this thing. We've got to clean it up anyway, but we need to figure out what's wrong with it. So I got the engine as disassembled as I need it to be, and I'm pretty sure I know what the issue is, but there is too much junk in this gearbox for me to be able to tell. We need to clean up all this ridiculous old oil first. It's all over everything in here. It needs a good cleaning, so I'm just going to start by cleaning that up. So it's now a little while later and I'm back. I just took a couple minute break to try and remove all that hair from this thing. I didn't attack this with a Q-tip or anything. All I did while I was gone is use those tweezers and remove more of that carpet hair that was in this thing. And that got rid of quite a lot in there. I don't think any of you wanted to see me struggle with that for another 5-10 minutes, so I just decided to cut it there. And now we can continue with regularly scheduled maintenance and whatnot, so I can go back to cleaning out the rest of this lubricant or whatever is in here, and then hopefully we can unveil the issue. Now, after all that cleanup work is done, we can see the problem from in here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on camera, but right here in the gear, there's this little line. This part of the gear right in there is cracked. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna see if I can tighten this down with a vise or some pliers or something just to hold the gear in place, then use a little bit of glue to hold it in place and all that, and let it dry, and hopefully that'll at least resolve some of the gearing issues. I don't have a replacement gear or anything, and this is a cheap engine, so I'm not going to go too crazy, and we're going to give it a fix to make it work. Something else I failed to notice, and I don't know how well you can see this, but the teeth around the crack are also really chewed up. So I'm going to just try and use a little bit of super glue. I'm going to put some of it on this toothpick right here, and I'm just going to rub some of it right around the crack, and then I'll let the thing dry, and I might spray it with a little bit of Instaset as well. So, off camera, I've reassembled this thing. I wanted to test this thing out first. Because of the condition of that gear, I'm not sure if it'll even be usable or if it'll just strip straight out when we try and test it. So I put the axle back in, now that the glue is all dried, so I'll give it some power. And it sounds like it's pretty badly stripped out. It also looks like something's gone on with the gear since I had actually been working on this just now. It was not curved like this. It was pretty straight and now it's curved at an angle. So I'm assuming something catastrophically went wrong in there. So I've taken the locomotive back apart, and because of the whole crack gear situation, I'm pretty sure when we turned it on, it just straight up stripped the entire gear. And on top of that, it has been all bent out of whack. It no longer even sits on this axle shaft correctly. So I'm going to dig through my parts bin. I'm going to use, I believe it's my Northwest Shortline tool to pull the axle apart. And I'll see if we have any gears that are roughly the same size as this thing with the same tooth pattern that I can throw in. Initially, I wasn't planning to show this, but I'm going to show you how I pull the gear off this thing. This is my gear puller tool, so I have the wheel set up. I'm just now bringing the actual puller bit down to where it needs to be. This plate goes between the wheel and this thing here to kind of clamp it in place. It's at a weird angle, so I've just kind of got to hold it in my hands like this. And all I have to do is twist this Allen wrench up at the top. Then the wheel comes off. So I think I have actually found a good solution, and I've actually used this before. I did not film it, but now I think is actually going to be a very good time to film it. So this, as you can probably tell, is an Athearn blue box gear. And something that I've noticed about these specific blue box gears is they share the exact same teeth pattern as this gear. The teeth on this one are a little bit shorter than the teeth that are on the old gear, but I just tested it out and it looks like it meshes with that worm gear just fine. So what I'm going to do is I have this little piece of heat shrink tube here. What I've done before, and this works on the Model Power 260. So if you've seen any of those that have crack gears, this also works for them. This is the same thing I did on mine and it works great. So all I did is I will heat this heat shrink tube down, and I'll typically, on purpose, make it stand off the end of the axle right here. so that way it can taper down. I can slide this gear on, it will get stuck on there, and then I can either slide the piece of heat shrink tube down or cut off the little bit of an end, get the thing centered, press the wheel back on, and we should be good to go. So as you can see, the gear is now on the axle. One thing that I have done is I removed the excess heat shrink tube that I don't need. It's actually really secure on here. It can move a little bit, but there's not going to be enough friction in this gearbox for this thing to move whatsoever. As long as you don't overload it, it'll be perfectly fine. Also, just to compensate for the slightly smaller tooth size, what I did is I just went and filed down the bearings a little bit. This isn't an engine I particularly care for, so I don't really care that much about modifying it, and if it ruins it, oh well. This was a junk engine, this was the gear that came out of it, so we're just trying to see if we can make something that is horrendously broken and make it work again. So for the purposes of this, it's fine. If it's something more precise, I probably wouldn't recommend doing this. So what I'm going to do off camera is I'm just going to put this wheel back on the axle. I'm not the greatest at quartering, so I'm not going to struggle to do that on camera. I'll come back once this whole pair thing is put back together. Alright, the wheel set is now back together, so I think all that's really left to do is to give this thing a little bit of fresh oil and some fresh grease and put the thing back together and hope this works out. If not, we might have to make a few minor adjustments and things, but hopefully my repair here should work out. So, the locomotive's back together, and so's the tender. I didn't do anything with the tender on camera, it just needed a new axle, and after that it was good to go. Something I did notice is one of these front two wheels, cannot remember which one for the life of me, is a little bit warped, and the axle housing was already not the greatest. So filing it might have made it a little worse. I don't think it really changed anything since I filed both the exact same amount. But I think that's why it was jumping around. There's not really a way I can fix the thing. The housing here is just really badly made, and the wheel is kind of warped, so it's probably going to bounce around a little bit, but hopefully it actually runs somewhat properly now that it's got a new gear. So, now it's time for the moment of truth. I'll give this thing some power, and we'll see if the new gear has saved it. Seems to run a little bit smoother in reverse. And as you can see, most likely, it is hopping around a little bit, but that's way better than it was before, so I'm going to call it a success. This model is never going to be perfect, definitely because of that one wheel, but I think for what we've got to work with, this is a pretty good result. So even though this 040 had some defects that I could fix in the way of the gear, and some that I couldn't fix in the way of this front axle and its wheels, as you can see, it shouldn't be wobbling around like that. I might need to work on this thing a little bit more in the future, but for the purpose of today's video, I think this thing is a pretty good result. Again, it's not perfect, but for the amount of damage this thing had sustained and the defects and everything going on with it, I think I'm happy with it. I do really like how I can replace some of the gears on these things with old Athearn gears. If anyone has any other thoughts about other engines that these gears could work in, or if you think it's a terrible idea to try and put them in these things, let me know.